All right, good evening, everyone. It's October 22nd, somehow, 2025, and this is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, and this is a full committee meeting. As some people know, we have two new interim chairs, and we are going to start things off slightly differently today with a roll call. So I will pass it to Afrida.
Yes, so in this roll call, if PCEP members could either come off mute or raise your virtual hand to signify you being in the space, and then we will then open up for introductions for staff and city members. So Conrad, there we go.
Off. Yes, off
Yeah,
mute.
there we go. Jorge, I see you.
Here.
Kip.
Howdy, I am here.
There we go. Tia. I saw you say you're here and I see your hand.
Okay,
Tia.
here we go. I'm here.
Leslie. All right, we'll come back to Leslie in a moment. Viva.
I'm here.
All right, wonderful. Gabby.
Oh, hello. Nice to see you all.
All right. Carrie, I see your virtual hand. Right on. All right, now we're going to open the floor for city staff and also other city members.
And I can start. Dory Grabinski, PCEP Program Manager.
Elizabeth Perez, Enterprise Services Director for the Public Safety Service Area.
Liz Taylor, PCEP Program Coordinator.
Chris Lindsay, Captain of the Internal Affairs Division from the Portland Police Bureau.
Good evening. I'm Adrian Matika. I'm a lieutenant with Portland Police Bureau, work in the Chief's office.
Sarah Ames from the City Attorney's Office. I use she, her pronouns. Christopher, you up.
Christopher Taft, he, him from Mayor Wilson's office.
Good evening. I'm Melanie Payne. I use she, her. I'm the Training and Development Manager at 911.
All right.
And chairs, I didn't know if the intent was to also have PCEP members reintroduce themselves in that part. So let me know if you want to do it that way.
Yeah. And I want to also note that Leslie is here as well. Okay, community agreements. Just reviewing our community agreements, we agree to listen actively and respectfully, to speak your own truth, share airtime, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, be present and open to new information and perspectives, ask questions to clarify, assume positive intent, call out bias, respect each other, be okay with ambiguity, and to respect the group. I now turn it back over to the chairs.
I'm gonna look at Conrad to see which one he wants to go.
Oh, I was just gonna say to go over the agenda, and then we're trying with the group try to keep a consistent pattern and habit. So this is an experiment. You know, feedback is open, right? We don't have one correct solution. So just wanted to start it off, but Jorge, you want to?
Yeah. So for today's overview of today's meeting, we're going to jump into our updates because we do have a lot. A lot has happened in the past month, so we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on the interim chair's vision share. So me and Conrad are kind of vision for the next coming months, January, February, depending on how long the term is. PVV response to exploratory evidence recommendation. I know folks had a lot of comments and thoughts around that, so we're going to explore that a bit more. The PCCEP meeting with Mayor Wilson, as stated in the settlement agreement, and then we'll end with open public comment. Next slide, please. So, updates. I will look at if any of the staff want to give this, or if they're okay with me doing it.
Oh, it's up to you. It's pretty straightforward. I can cover the admin
Okay,
updates.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to keep everyone in the loop about our membership progress and also the staff progress. So we are beginning second round interviews tomorrow and basically through the end of this week. And then we anticipate that the appointment timeline will be November, December, hopefully. And so we'll be welcoming some new members come January, December, January. And then, as many of you know, PCCEP is also going to be hiring a community engagement staffer. So that's been in the pipeline for quite some time. We have made progress on that. The position has been created in our system, and we will be posting that job sometime in mid-November. And I think that's all from me.
Awesome. So next month, November 13th, we have, or the independent monitor, court-appointed independent monitor, is having, him and his team are having a town hall. The date, I believe, as of a couple hours ago, was November 13th at the Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church Fellowship Hall. Yeah, more to come on that. But for folks that are interested, which I'm assuming is a lot because it is, yeah, independent monitor, November 13th. So save the date, put on the calendars, and yeah, more to come. Next slide. So now we have new PPB liaisons to PCCEP. I would say I'll pass it to any of them if they want to just say a couple words, a sentence, keep it brief.
I'll be brief. Hi again. My name is Chris Lindsay. I'm the captain for the Internal Affairs Division for the Portland Police Bureau. I'm one of the 5 appointed PCCEP liaisons. I've been with the Bureau for 22 years, and I look forward to working with the group. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Adrian Matika. I'm a lieutenant of the Chief's Office. I've been with the Bureau for 16 and a half years now. I want to thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to work with the group. Thank you.
And I guess I'll just kind of interject a question. So I think the PPV liaison, the concept of it is new in this space. And so I think both PCCEP and the liaisons will kind of be co-creating what these liaisons do. So I don't know if Lieutenant Matika or Lindsay, Captain Lindsay, you would like to speak to kind of how the Chief's Office envisions the role of liaison as PCCEP is beginning to think about that as well.
Well, I'll take a stab, and then I'll let Adrian, if he can fill in where I fall short. So one of Chief Day's priorities is transforming the dynamic between the police and the public that we serve. And he wants there to be more consistency in our participation with PCCEP and also, other aspects of the community as well. And by appointing us as permanent liaisons, the instruction was, no matter where you transfer to, promote, wherever, you will always be the PCCEP liaison. And that's about consistency. I know in the past I've heard rumblings about how you'd have a member of the police bureau show up, they'd show up for one meeting, jot down your recommendations, answer some questions, and you may never hear from or see them again, or it'd be a number of months before that occurred. The chief's intention is to stop that. That's why you have the 5 of us who will be attending. Not all 5 of us won't be able to attend every single one of these meetings, but you will have the 5 points of contact to use going forward. The point of this too is to establish and build on a relationship, and those are built on trust and communication and dialogue. And that's, I believe, the goal of why we are here, is to foster that and to have that grow over for however long we will be here. And then if Adrian wants to chime in, that's all.
Thank you, Captain. I think you covered it really well. I don't have really anything to add to that. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks.
And I do apologize real quick. I do apologize. Sometimes I get a low bandwidth notification when I'm at home. So I apologize. If I turn my camera off, I'm not hiding. It just sometimes it makes it easier for me to speak and not be choppy in here. So
all good, Captain. But yeah, no, to Dora's point, yeah, thanks for those words, and yeah, how we envision it, because yeah, it's the first thing. And yeah, but yeah, no, excited to see how this will go. As you know, it's the first time we're really having dedicated liaisons to our work. So yeah. I don't know if the slides are back. Thank you, Liv. Yeah. So City Council Public Safety updates. There were 2 initiatives. I believe one was an ordinance and a resolution that council passed last week. The first one was the Protect Portland initiative. It was a resolution designed to shield Portland residents from unconstitutional federal overreach by coordinating legal challenges, transparency, rapid response planning, and strict limits on local cooperation with federal agencies. The second was a code to enact sanctuary city status protections. And the code that enshrines existing resolution to formally establish Portland as a sanctuary city, legally prohibiting city resources, staff, or law enforcement from aiding federal immigration enforcement, and ensuring strong protections for immigrant and refugee communities. Both, I believe the code to enact was, the chief sponsor was Councilor Canal, and Protect Portland Initiative, I'm blinking on it right now. But thanks to council, you know, those 2 big things have been really amazing. Just knowing everything that's been going on these past couple of weeks, a lot has happened, a lot that we weren't expecting. So thank you to council for that. Next slide. Yeah. So this, I'm blinking, but I believe this was yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, Monday. On Monday, the Ninth Circuit ruled that the National Guard can deploy to Portland. It was a two of 3 judges assigned to hear the appeal. And the Ninth Circuit voted to overturn the district court's temporary restraining order, or TRO. Attorney General Dan Rayfield and Governor Tina Kotek called for the decision to be reconsidered by the full appeals court. The second TRO, which I am also blinking right now, but I believe it's the one that any National Guard can be deployed, is still in effect. As Governor Kotek stated, right now, until the district court acts on the second TRO, National Guard members from Oregon or any other state cannot deploy. I think yes, Sarah, I was just about to call on you.
The first thing, the 2 of 3 judges assigned to hear the appeal in the Ninth Circuit voted to overturn. They voted to stay the TRO. And then immediately a judge on the Ninth Circuit asked for the en banc review. And that means the full Ninth Circuit, all the active judges, 29 of them, will get to vote, and by majority vote decide whether they want to hear that. And the standard is the Ninth Circuit will grant en banc review when a case presents an issue of exceptional importance, or whether there's some division a panel's decision conflicts with the Supreme Court or another circuit's decision, where you get this kind of, dissonance within the appeals court. So I don't know how long they might take to decide that, but the Oregon DOJ with the city is filing a brief to the Ninth Circuit arguing that the court should hold an en banc, this kind of second round of review at the appellate level.
Awesome.
On the motion to stay that first tier. In fact, the district court put that into effect. Judge Karen Immergut, and she just scheduled a hearing on Friday on the federal government. They moved to say, okay, we won on the first TRO, get rid of the second one. Two, it's based on the same logic. I'm vastly oversimplifying the argument. And that currently prevents, as Governor Kotek said, any deployment of any National Guard folks. And so on Friday, in the hearing that was just scheduled this afternoon, the state DOJ in the city will argue that the district court, what the Ninth Circuit's going to do with the review of the first one. So it's kind of all a little bit of a hurry up and wait and, file a bunch of information and then, let the judges consider it. So it's a little bit complicated, but if you have any questions, I can answer procedural questions.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
I think one question that may be on folks' mind is, I know there was comment from the federal judge regarding that if the first TRO was, I'm trying to find like the word for it, but was the appeal, like was appealed, that she would remove the second TRO. I guess what's like the city or the city attorney's response on that if it were to occur?
Well, I think we have encouraged the court not to automatically dissolve, and that's why she scheduled the hearing on Friday. We think that, given the uncertainty at the Ninth Circuit and the immediate call for it would be 11 members of the Ninth Circuit appeals judges and the presiding judge, and then randomly selected 10 others. So it could be a different look at it than when we got the first time with just a small 3-person panel. So that's been the consistent line. We should wait and see what happens to the first one in the full review before before the district judge dissolves the second one.
Okay. Do PCEP members have questions for the city attorney's office?
I have so many, but I don't think Sarah can answer them. So, but thank you for the explanations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Don't put me on the spot. This is obviously not my litigation, but I just,
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Next slide, please. So our subcommittee updates, I will hand it over to Kit, policy and reform.
So Tia, correct me if I get anything wrong. But last Wednesday, as City Council was considering the Protect Portland initiative and other ordinances and policies, we had our Policy and Reform Subcommittee meeting, and really appreciate the lieutenant and the captain for showing up to take some hard questions and discuss PPB policy around 3 core topics that we presented, which were talking about how PPB enforces sanctuary city policies. Part of the legislation from last week was to expand that to the rest of Portland agencies. So really excited to see that move forward. Also to talk about how they respond to public order events. And lastly, responding to 911 calls when a person believes they are in danger or unsafe due to a possible DHS action. And To keep it brief, I'm just going to reiterate what we talked about. There's also, I'm going to put the link in the chat before, no, I'm not, that's not the link. I will find the link for you for the overall meeting. PPB restated the fact that they follow all sanctuary city policies, which are now being codified. We heard great feedback from the community on the PPB dialogue officers and how they're targeting arrests for people allegedly violating law, but generally showing a great deal of restraint down in what is a very challenging area in front of the ICE facility in McAdam. Also, it was discussed that PPB suggested that if people feel unsafe, they should absolutely call 911. What PPB can do when they show up is limited, but it extends to verifying that the people who are claiming to be DHS, ICE, or other federal agents are who they say they are, and PPB will have that conversation. If they are those officers, the hands are tied by PPB as far as what the federal agents can go forward with whatever actions they have, but PPB would also be able to do some peacekeeping and de-escalation and being present if possible. So I really appreciated that part of it. There was also some discussion in the meeting, and I understand that there's some discussion in PPB about this, whether there's more that can be done as far as PPB offering additional support or information, and that conversation is being discussed. Beyond that, we don't really have any updates because this was just a short week ago. But again, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive from the committee and the attendees, and we're grateful that we're a value-based city. Anything I missed, Tia, on that? You're on mute.
Okay, here
There
we
you go,
go.
Tia.
Thanks. I was just reading the notes and we wrote, these are some of the can and can'ts of police with their role with federal officers here. They cannot enforce federal law. They can monitor the crowd for safety. They are not allowed to interfere with DHS, but they can go to the 911 call to identify and confirm if an officer is in fact a federal officer, but cannot go further than that. They can't stop them from their federal law, but they are required to have their body-worn cameras on and will videotape all the cases that are happening. Max Sledge from Cure PNW was really excited about the cultural change she was seeing in crowd control. Was really complimenting the police officers who have been out at the protest and had a lot of great things to say from Portland Immigration Rights Coalition. That was really helpful to have her there that evening. And we will be doing an update and a follow-up at our next meeting. Those are just some of the things that I'm jumping in on.
Thanks, Tia. Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you, Tia.
And then really fast, just to acknowledge the community engagement piece. I just want to be very transparent with everybody that it is on pause, right? And that's not, anything we expect to last any particular long period of time, right? It's just in lieu of the city looking and recruiting a dedicated staff person. And we just want to make sure that no one leaves thinking that we don't have community engagement. We think inherently between upcoming meeting with the mayor, the status conference, the town hall opportunity with independent monitor, they're all these existing community engagement pieces, and we look forward to seeing that return as we recruit and onboard more members. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. I was just about to say something about it, so you got me. But yeah, no, it's just a temporary thing, just until membership is back up and we figure out everything else in the coming weeks. So, next slide. Okay, so this is a big one for me and Conrad. The co-chair's vision share. So really just kind of give everyone, PCCEP members, parties involved, so staff, and just overall the general public on our vision of leadership and how we want to approach things in the coming months. Initiatives that we're going to begin doing in meetings and just outside. Yeah, Conrad, do you want to kick us off, or you'd like me to?
Why don't you kick it off and I'll come in.
Cool. So one of the first things that we want to start doing is really with roll call, just so transparency wise, to really, roll call really just as we did at the beginning of the meeting, Afrido would likely be the person as the facilitator. Call someone's name for attendance. It's really just to kind of increase, participation and just really ensure like who is here and who isn't here. Before that, it was really just it was mainly Dory just kind of asking who was here and who wasn't. This way, it's more available to everyone to know who is a PCCEP member and who isn't a PCCEP member, just to increase transparency and overview. I don't know, Conrad, if you have anything more to add on the roll call part. Awesome. Our approach to a full committee agenda, I believe both me and Conrad also share the same view on this, but it was most of how we will approach full committee agendas are based on the steering committee's priorities that we outlined at the beginning of this year, and also consisting on items that were approached at meetings and will be sort of old items be followed up at the next meetings. That way we're not kind of pausing it, but we're continuing it at our next meeting. I believe we have a agenda template that we want to mention. I don't know if we can share it, but it kind of, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just to go over really, really fast, shared with the committee, again, proposed, right? But just in the interest of transparency and taking the fantastic steering committee feedback, right? Is once we have introductions, the set kind of flow of the meeting is updates should come first. And before we move on to anything else, we should carry over anything's previously discussed, previously talked about, not quite resolved, so that we are actually following through on the things we say we're going to from previous meetings. And we want that to be at the forefront of what we're doing to the Bureau, to the city, to the community. And then we are taking recommendations directly from our subcommittees, right now, policy and reform, that they refer to the body to give to the body and have them report out. Then we'll look at new business at the end. And then as of course, we'll always have public comment. So we're hoping just kind of a regular flow structure makes it really easy for different community members, different guests to follow along. And that's our goal, right? Is consistency, collaboration, and just clarity in the process.
Yeah. And then meeting head-ins, I believe this is our individual check-ins with members. I think that's what was, no, Dory, can you?
This is just the potential switch up in the order that the committee holds its meetings. So full committee, subcommittee, etc.
Oh, right. Yeah. Connor, do you mind touching on that one? I think you were the one that were
Yeah,
more on it
so
than me.
so just for discussion, we won't have a solution right now, but just to bring up, right, the goal of Jorge and I as interim, right, we're only serving a few months, is just to kind of reground, recenter the group and set us up as we're onboarding new people. And so we feel this is an apt time. Take a look at the meeting cadence. There are some inherent positives and negatives about the full committee meeting at the end of the month. I don't know about you all, but it feels like we kind of miss a lot of things because of the time that the full committee meets. So for proposal, which we can discuss later, is if we take a look at potentially changing the week of the month, like the second Wednesday, it's going to affect some of the subcommittee meetings, but that way the full body is meeting the week before the city council. And also catching things that tend to happen at the beginning of the month, so we're not delayed all through the month before we're able to catch it. And then inherently with the holiday schedules at the end of the year, we're always trying to reschedule meetings around things that happen on the fourth week of the month. So just one of those things we want input, right? Open collaboration, so that in these next couple months, maybe we can take a look at that cadence, what makes sense for the group as we onboard new people. That way they're set up for success, we're set up for success, and we can hit the ground running. Okay. So that's kind of meeting cadence, dissemination of materials, right? Shared with the group. We're really looking at no later than one full calendar week. Obviously we had some hiccups with this one, right? Do apologize. But the goal is that both between having an agenda flow where things are pretty well dialed in, you know, we'll have a full week of the materials for the meeting. And then of course, you know, there might be some last minute additions as news pops up, like it just did this past Monday. And we'll be able to still be flexible enough to include that as it comes up by holding time for some of those last minute updates as part of every single meeting. Back to you, Jorge.
Thanks, Conrad. Yes, and then with facilitation, so we believe it was last month we had conversations about our bylaws, specifically more, or our conversation was oriented on the responsibilities of the co-chairs. And as me and Conrad stated, in the coming months, we really want to focus more in our internal structure, especially as we get new members coming in, so that they're, you know, prepared, they know what's going on, they feel comfortable with how we are structured. And with facilitation, we really want to focus on how we want to facilitate the meetings, and that's a conversation with, you know, staff, co-chairs, and our third-party facilitator. Really focusing on really how we really want to structure meetings, who does what, who does this, so it's more clear for clarity reasons. And yeah, I think that's really my part with how it was for facilitation. Conrad, I don't know if you had a different view on it, but it was pretty much with the facilitation part, just the confusion around it that we want to clear up. And lastly, upholding community agreements. With our community agreements, you know, this is something that, you know, we really want to keep emphasizing every time. We emphasize it at the beginning of each meeting, and we want to keep emphasizing it specifically, you know, in these coming months as we really focus on our internal structure. And this goes for, you know, all meeting attendings. So, you know, if that's PCCEP staff, PCCEP members, general public, I think really that we really want to focus on is just upholding them, and really not kind of picking and choosing which one you want to uphold, but knowing that this was established by the whole group. Yeah, and I'm thinking if we want to say the ones specifically, Conrad, or if there's more on it.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of piggyback on that, right? Inherently, there's going to be some uncomfortable topics or conversations, the nature of the work, want to acknowledge that. We want to acknowledge that people are coming from different perspectives, backgrounds, and represent different communities in our city. And it's a great city. And part of that is there's going to be slight disagreement or misalignment. And we want to emphasize the community agreements to uphold that there will be times of ambiguity, and there will be times where we might have to call out bias. And that's okay, because we do it professionally and we do it in a constructive way where we're all growing and getting better. And so we just really want to double down and embrace it. It's the community agreements we agreed to. Until such a time that the body would like to revisit them, those are the ones that we're using to facilitate all of our meetings.
Yeah. Those are just some of the sort of drafts that we want to, put out there for members. They're not established, they could always change. It's really just our proposal to everyone here, how we want to just go moving forward. I'm open to comments if folks have for right now. Yeah, comments or questions, PCCEP members.
I think these are great ideas, and I think it's a great way to move things forward, especially if you guys are not, the chairs once your interim is over. I think this is like a really great plan to move things to that point. So thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, and to Conrad's point too, if you always want to do a, separate thing, that's also awesome too. Yeah, that's our vision for the coming months. And again, we'll have more conversations around this and hopefully come to a stable, settled place on it. Next slide. So PBB's response, I'll go this. PBB's response to exploratory evidence recommendation. Next slide. And then here, which we could, if it could be dropped in the chat for folks to see, but there's the two links. One, a link to the PPB response of what Chief Day responded to our recommendation, and a link to PCCEP's recommendation to Chief Day. If you want to really compare the two, but Dora, do you mind if you, not to put you on the spot, Dora, but if you could just highlight some of the two, like a sentence or two about the summary.
I would recommend that we perhaps summarize the recommendation, but then actually look at the response.
Okay.
If that works for folks. I'm not sure if everyone here has had the chance to see it. So I could summarize the recommendation, or I'm sure another member could as well. Any takers, policy and reform people, perhaps?
I could speak to our recommendation. It's pretty straightforward. Liz added the link in the chat. But we talked about it over two different meetings. We consulted with the Metropolitan Public Defender's Office and Oregon Justice Resource Center. I'll never get that right. My apologies. And had input from multiple folks, as well as PPB had said that they got an extraordinary number of input directly. And my thing just said I signed out. I'm still here, right? Okay. Thank you. So anyway, our core recommendation was that we felt from everything we heard that the current directive was in a good place as a call it a best practice, or tends to err on the side of being accessible to public defenders and the people they're defending, and we recommended essentially no changes. That was the crux of it, that it should not be changed. We did not really understand what problem was trying to be solved by changing it. Did I misrepresent that, or does everybody agree with that kind of summation?
Yeah, thanks, Kip. And I guess I would just add for context, the committee discussed well, also worked closely with Metropolitan Public Defenders in crafting the recommendation and discussed with them how there were concerns about the potential of limiting the flow of information in the criminal legal system as it relates to the internal exculpatory evidence policy. So yeah, PCCEP recommended no changes be made. And also discussed a follow-up, had a follow-up conversation with Chief Day about the response. So I think we should pull that up now and read through it. And we are also joined by some folks from Metropolitan Public Defenders who were invited to contribute to this discussion. So Liz, could we get that response shared? Great. And would any PCCEP members like to read this, or maybe trade off while reading it?
I can read it. Sorry, I'm just gonna read it off my computer. So to the Portland to PCCEP from regarding the recommendation regarding proposed revision to PPB directive duty to report potential exculpatory or impeachment material. Dear PCCEP members, thank you for your ongoing engagement regarding our review of Directive 320, duty to report potential exculpatory or impeachment material. When reviewing the additional comments you shared, particularly as it pertains to the implied purpose of the proposed policy, it became apparent that perhaps I should clarify an important point. An important purpose of this directive is to ensure the Portland Police Bureau compliance with Brady v. Maryland and subsequent cases. Additionally, another critical purpose is simply to establish PPB's administrative process for compliance. While compliance includes acknowledgement of prosecutors' responsibility to make decisions about materiality and disclosure, which the directive states, it is important to remember the broader purpose of PPB directives. They are the means by which PPB codifies procedural and legal requirements and guidance for its members. Although courts may attribute police records to prosecutorial control or possession, PPB is a separate and distinct entity from Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. The directive is at its core about PPB fulfilling its duty under Brady. Section 1.3. Both the PCCEP, unless somebody else wants to read it. Both the PCCEP recommendation and additional comments you shared express concern about Section 1.3, characterizing it as problematic. Section 1.3 states allegations that cannot be substantiated are not credible or have resulted in exonerated, not sustained, or unfounded findings are generally not potential Brady material. Although Section 1.3 aims to frame what frequently does not constitute potential Brady material, it is not definitive and does not allow the Bureau to classify away Brady material, as PCCEP notes in its response. On the contrary, PPB errs on the side of over-disclosure regarding its proposed notification process for certain investigations. Section 3.1.1.2 supports this position as it conveys that PPB will affirmatively notify the MCDA of all non-sustained findings for designated investigations despite non-sustained findings generally not falling under Brady. For context, PPB derived language from Section 1.3 from the United States Department of Justice Manual, Section 95.1. policy regarding the disclosure of prosecutors to potential impeachment information concerning law enforcement agency wishes. The Giglio policy. PPB carefully drafted this section and garnered Department of Justice and independent police review approval at the time PPB originally created the directive, and the section serves as a nod to the privacy implications of disclosing non-sustained findings. Accordingly, the Bureau will not adopt PCCEP's recommendation to remove Section 1.3. I'm going to keep going. Okay, I'm just going to read the whole thing. Section 3.1.1.2, the Bureau supports PCCEP's recommendation to clarify this section. Please refer to the attachment to view the revision. Section 3.5, PCCEP expressed concern. Section 3.5 is very problematic and questioned PPB's and the City of Portland's authority to deny MCDA access to records. As I previously noted, PPB is a separate and distinct entity from MCDA. While prosecutors have an obligation to discover and disclose Brady material existing within police records for constitutional purposes, that obligation does not create or require unfettered access to all police personnel records, which contain volumes of potentially confidential and private information, largely irrelevant to any criminal investigations. PPB recognizes that the boundaries of Brady are frequently debated and litigated, and Section 3.5 provides an avenue for judicial review when dispute exists. Our research indicates that using in camera, i.e. private judicial review, to identify potential Brady material is a commonly utilized and widespread practice among law enforcement agencies to fulfill their Brady obligations. In fact, some agencies rely solely on that practice for all disclosures, not providing any affirmative notifications. Accordingly, PPB's framework for providing affirmative notice of potential Brady material to the prosecutor, then allowing prosecutor review of designated files, and finally facilitating in-camera review to cover other investigations, is quite comprehensive and progressive relative to other local jurisdictions' Brady policies. With that said, PPB did not intend to convey that it would categorically deny access to files. Rather, the objective was to establish another means by which it would provide access to investigative information, not otherwise identified in policy as a court deems appropriate. Thus, PPB reviewed relevant case law to inform the revision of Section 3.5 to more accurately reflect our preferred process by providing access to files in the circumstance described. For more context, please see U.S. versus Cadet. Please refer to the attachment to view the revision. Thank you again for your continued investment and participation in our review and development of Directive 320. Duty to report potential exculpatory or impeachment material. I'm grateful for your involvement in shaping our policy. Sincerely, Robert Day, Chief of Police.
And if desired, we can reference the sections that, or we can take a look at the sections that were referenced throughout, but maybe that's something we come back to, unless anyone wants to direct us there now. Okay, I think, so we do have some invited guests, so I will hand it over to MPD folks, if that's okay with you, Conrad.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, and just to introduce myself, I'm Grant Hartley. I'm the Multnomah County Director for Metropolitan Public Defenders, and I will let my colleagues introduce themselves. You guys want to jump on?
Sure. I'm Henry Ostrom Shaw, and I work with Grant at Metro Public Defender in downtown Portland.
Grant, I think your audio is not working. That's Grant Cole. He works with us too. I'm Drew Flood. I also work at MPD. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you, guys. So I want to start by really thanking PCEP for its advocacy on this issue. When we first saw these changes coming about, I think we were quite worried that they were going to just fly under the radar. And it is a dramatic change. It's one of these things that if you look at the criminal legal system, Brady evidence and exculpatory evidence is not something that comes up in TV shows, but when it comes to the rights of criminal defendants and the legitimacy of our system, it is imperative. And so, I really want to thank PCEP for that, and for taking the time to understand this issue. I do also want to thank PPB and Chief Day for considering our feedback and being responsive to some of it as well. While we would have obviously preferred that the directive remain the way it was, especially given the amount of community input and stakeholder input, and the best practices of that former directive, we nonetheless appreciate the removal of a lot of the very concerning elements of the initial proposed revision. But I think before getting into any of the specific feedback, I do really just want to reiterate how concerning it is that the push for this change came from the district, primarily it appears, came from the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. That essentially means that the District Attorney's Office was advocating to receive less information about officer misconduct. I think when they are putting on officers as witnesses, it's important that they understand any potential misconduct that that officer had in their past. And it's equally important that the defense understands that. And, that is how we have a fair and transparent justice system to the extent it is. And so, I think it is incredibly concerning that that push was led by them and that really they largely stayed out of the discussions around it. And part of the problem is that even under the old policy and under these changes is that we don't know what is being sent to the DA's office. We don't know that PPB had complied with the directive previously or is complying with the directive now because we are not getting any information about this. We have not gotten any information about this in the past. They have a constitutional obligation to provide us with this misconduct information if it rises to the level of Brady, and yet despite us receiving in Washington County office, receiving letters like this regularly, here in Multnomah County, it never happens unless there is an officer that is actively being prosecuted by them. And so I think we all know that there are founded allegations of misconduct against officers. It is not uncommon. And so we should have been receiving that information, and there is something breaking down. And so, I think in order to figure out what that is, and sort of in the vein of transparency, what would be very helpful is if PPB could provide information about the number of times it has complied with this directive, and it has actually provided that information. And I know that we have some folks from PPB on here, and I hope that's something that it would consider doing, because otherwise the directive is largely irrelevant and useless if there is no enforcement mechanism. And if we don't know where that is breaking down, it is very hard to litigate and to challenge. And so that's the first sort of request that I wanted to make. And before I turn it over to my colleagues, I also wanted to note, I think Chief Day mentioned section 1.3, which talks about how unless there's a founded allegation, it generally does not arise to Brady. And I think there's something seriously lost in that. The city will often settle lawsuits for millions of dollars in situations where misconduct was not founded. And that in itself is exculpatory. That is impeachment evidence of that officer, right? Even if there was no founded allegation against that person, if they cost the city millions of dollars in a settlement, that is a motivation for that person to make their conduct in the present case that they're testifying on seem better. And that is impeachment evidence that is necessary. And so I just wanted to provide that one example to sort of refute Chief Day's characterization of it. I will say, Chief Day does say that it is not a it is not a conclusive statement, that it's a qualified statement, that it's generally, and that is true. But we know that there are a lot of situations where an unfounded allegation has resulted in one of those settlements, and we still have not been provided that information. So as far as some technical feedback, I'll turn it over to my colleagues to sort of weigh in on some of their thoughts. Don't everyone speak at once.
I don't have too much to add. I think I would just say I know that PCCEP put out a survey for its membership about potential follow-up, given that the new middle ground directive language is now the law, or is about to become the law. I think monitoring whether those quarterly notifications are happening, what information is fed into them, and then what the follow-up is on the prosecutor side of the system could be a potentially helpful role for PCCEP in ensuring that the implementation of the directive is thorough and transparent.
I'll briefly contribute, sort of echoing Grant Hartley's point regarding the sort of frustration related to the pretty glaring absence of the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office in this conversation. It does feel like the bottleneck with this is actually not PPB, but it is the DA's office. I think I saw a question in the chat around best practices from other jurisdictions. We've talked before about how, although we do not think that the Washington County DA's office is a model to be followed at all, that they are still far, far better in terms of satisfying their obligations than the Multnomah County DA's office is, which is, I think, a pretty sad statement. I know that Drew Flood, who's also here, can speak to other jurisdictions that he's worked in the past that have far better sort of methods of disclosure than what we see here. But again, to me, I do think that the directive as it exists, or as it has existed, is a pretty solid model. It should continue to exist, and we would just like to see the DA's office comply with their obligations.
At the risk of having to hear from all of us, you're going to, because we're public defenders and we all like to talk, so I'm sorry. I think at the first meeting, the main thing that I was frustrated by was that MCDA was not there and continues to not be here and continues to not be a part of this conversation. And I will say that I think that is absurd. I think it is extremely clear that MCDA wrote or strongly contributed. Obviously, PPB members can say, or can kind of contradict that potentially, or I don't know. I wasn't a part of the drafting process, but it seems pretty clear to me that MCDA didn't want as much information because of the litigation that Henry and I did and successfully litigated in January. We know they are continuing to send requests to PPB for information modeled off of the policy that PPB has now changed based on PCEP's recommendations, which I think shows that that language around credible allegations is the only thing that they want to try to do to try to shield themselves. And so I would just echo what Grant Hartley said about hoping that the communication between PCEP and PPB and us can continue to be clear, because I think it's very clear, to not use the same word over and over, that the problem is that MCDA is not turning over this material. And that is the purpose of the policy, is for MCDA to give this material to defense lawyers. The purpose of the policy is to make sure PPB is getting that to MCDA. That's the ultimate communication, though, is to the defense lawyers that matters. That's to the defendant, so they can have a full and a fair trial, an opportunity to litigate their case. And so, again, I think that the party that needs to be held accountable here is not here. And I don't know how much there is to do about that, but I just want to be exceptionally clear about that, because that is a pattern that we see with MCDA across the way that they handle their prosecutions. That is a pattern we especially have seen since Nathan Vasquez took office. And it is exceptionally frustrating as you try to protect your client's rights to have it so hindered by the people who should be pursuing justice, not pursuing convictions. So.
Would it be okay if I spoke?
Yes, Captain.
Hi. Yeah. So I would just like to comment on that. As the captain of internal affairs, I'm the one who receives all of these requests. They come directly to me. I can reassure you that we are fulfilling them. I have done multiple this week. These requests come in from the district attorney's office. I can't comment on them. You have to talk to the district attorney's office about this, but I can tell you we are fulfilling them. They come in very specific requests on what they're looking for in terms of Brady, untruthfulness, bias, excessive force, evidence mishandling, criminal charges, convictions. We look for those. There's language, and I'm trying to find it in the new policy here, and I can't. Of course, I lost it to save my life. Something where we talk about where we are erring on in terms of like almost like we're gonna maybe over-report a little bit just to be on the safe side, because we have a vested interest in complying with the law as well. We want to make sure we are complying with the law, right? We don't want to see people being convicted when there's exculpatory evidence that could be out there that pertains to their innocence. That's not what PPB wants. So I want to reassure this committee of that as well. So with regard to Mr. Hartley's request about providing information, or like when these requests come through, if there's a way to facilitate that, I can talk about that. I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but that's a recommendation. I'll speak to the city attorney's office, and I'm sure we'll have to get the DA's office involved as well, and the chief's office. That's a higher policy level decision. But I want to reassure this body that we are fulfilling those requests as they are coming in, and we are sending them to the district attorney's office.
Kip, you have the floor.
Yeah, if I can just jump in real quick, Captain Lindsay, I think that would be a good avenue to pursue, because there's clearly over the months and multiple conversations we've had, there's clearly a disconnect between what different parties to this have been seeing and expecting and saying. So if there's a way to facilitate that conversation while, of course, keeping privacy and everything else in check, I think that would go a long way to determining whether everybody's seeing these issues in the same light. The one thing that I did forget to mention in the original response was kind of a rejection of our original recommendation. Then, as was pointed out, we took up some issues with the revised version of it that were addressed, but one of the things that still had not also been responded to was the narrowing of focus on Brady and not having a general published policy on other exculpatory evidence. So that's also something in our subcommittee that we were looking to discuss in the future also. So there might be a couple things that we can talk about to try to address moving forward on this.
I'm not a lawyer. If I could comment on that real quick, I think the problem is that we are responding to what the DA requests from us. So unless they request it, we are not entirely sure what, does that make sense? So if there's anything beyond the scope of Brady that's out there right now that people may want, we're not going to really know what that is unless the request is made to us. Does that make sense? Unless maybe I didn't understand your comment. That's what I took that as.
Yeah, Grant's hand is up. He could probably explain what I was trying to explain better than I can. So
Yeah, and I think that's Captain, I appreciate that. And that I think is part of the concern is that one, the previous policy that's been in existence since 2022, as well as the current policy, just to a little bit lesser extent, actually places an affirmative obligation on PPP to provide this information even when there is no request from MCDA. And so, you know, when I'm asking about what material has been provided, you know, I'm asking about both in that affirmative as well as in response to a request. And, you know, these request letters are relatively new. That is a very new process. I have not seen a lot of these come through before we started to litigate this issue back in January, despite that affirmative responsibility being in place since 2022. And so that's really where the concern lies. And in looking at the letters, and you know, I've got one up right now where it's a letter from you, Captain, back to the DA's office. In that the DA seems to have requested a very narrow category that wouldn't include everything that would be Brady, and is actually, this is what Drew was referencing, is actually using the language that was the proposed revision to the directive in the first place. And again, that really just shows MCDA's fingerprints on the original rewriting of this policy back around April or May. And I think what we're sort of wondering is, you know, both with the policy before it was changed and with the policy now, how often is PPP complying with that, and how often is PPP sending that information to the DA's office, whether it's in response to a request or due to the affirmative responsibility?
Right, and so yeah, I see what you're talking about. So the affirmative responsibility that PSD responsible, or the PSD commander, which is my boss, Jeff Bell, he does. I spoke with him about it today. He does. You're talking about like if a case comes up and we have an affirmative responsibility to notify the DA's office of something that has come up in terms of an investigation, allegation, or whatever. I know he does accomplish that. He accomplishes that through confidential means. But again, that's my boss's job, and I can't comment on it too much. But that is something that I know that he does fulfill as well. But yes, in terms of the requests that come to us, we are only fulfilling what the DA is asking.
Yeah, and I think that part of that issue is that what the DA is asking for is right now doesn't even come to the level of the new policy, right? Not even considering the older policy before it was changed, which was much more robust and transparent, but the request being made is actually a lower bar than what the obligations under the new policy are. And I think that's sort of the concern. And again, I think it shows that MCDA is asking for as little information as possible.
Can I tag on that, Grant? And I don't mean to turn this into a conversation between us and Captain Lindsay. And thank you, Captain Lindsay. I want to echo, I really appreciate you being here, because again, part of my frustration is that MCDA, who I think is a primary participant here, is not. And I'm going to say that as many times as I can. I think what I'm confused about then is under the current directive and under the directive as it's changing, there's the core 4 categories like evidence mishandling, excessive force, untruthfulness, and bias. And at least on a quarterly basis, the directive says under the new directive that that is going to be affirmatively reported to NCDA, all types of whatever the finding is under those core 4 categories, right? And that's kind of putting aside criminal convictions and stuff. So I think my question is that going to them? Because again, I think when we hear stuff about, well, we're responding to their requests, they shouldn't necessarily even be requesting those things, because they should just be getting them and then giving them to us when we have a defendant that officer is involved with. So I just want to clarify that point, because I think one of the questions again is, under the old policy, what seems like potentially happened is the directive was passed, and then NCDA never really set up that pathway for you guys to be affirmatively reporting all the things that you would have been reporting. And so I don't know if it was happening or not.
All I can speak to is that after speaking with my boss, Jeff Bell, he has been reporting that. So again, the information is flowing. We're fulfilling our obligation per policy and per law is all I can comment on.
I think that's where I'll jump back in. I appreciate the back and forth. I think that's good insight into the nature of the dialogue and how this has been going. I want to make sure to be respectful of everyone's time, that we turn it over to the committee to ask questions of the parties first. But before I do, I really want to call it out. Very impressed with the professional questions. Got a little close on one. I was watching you. But overall, really appreciate that. Want to keep that professional dialogue. Clearly, we're missing an entire party to the situation here. In lieu of that, I want to make sure we have committee members PCEP members. Give it a second. Otherwise, I'm getting a sense, it's hard in a Zoom meeting, that this is something we need to take back. Oh, Tia.
I, not really to the content, but how can we make a relationship with the DA's office so that we can somehow get them to some of our meetings, or don't start knowing each other, was just one of the questions I had, and also the need to do something more. Do we respond to the response? Do we hold another community meeting? Those are some of the things I'm thinking about.
It's a fantastic question, Tia. I think. Yep.
Yeah, I know that our city counterparts have requested the DA's office attend. I've reached out. Tia, I believe you've reached out. So it would be great to have them part of the conversation. They just have not responded directly to us. So I'm not sure how to facilitate that, but Captain Lindsay, if folks on your side have any ideas, that would be awesome, because they definitely are missing from this conversation. And I think what we had discussed previously from a subcommittee standpoint, or a full committee standpoint, that if we're hearing from our communities that this is something that we should continue pursuing a dialogue on, then we should schedule it and try to see if we can keep the conversation moving forward.
Absolutely. I want to make sure to leave space for committee members. The committee members also welcome to drop in the chat. As interim co-chair, I feel unsettled, and I'm going to recommend we refer this to subcommittee at this time. Again, to be respectful of everyone's time. I think we do have a slide coming up very specifically on this issue about a public poll for feedback, but it's, please screenshot it, share it. Hopefully we can get it out or send it out, make it readily available for community engagement. But things don't feel settled on the response from Chief Day. And it seems like we need to facilitate having a more in-depth conversation.
And I'll just add, I think what I've heard in this conversation is that this, as I think both Captain Lindsay and MPD folks have spoken to, this is a bigger issue than just the directive. And so that might be something for the subcommittee to probe as they sort of continue the work of following this recommendation and thinking about the impacts and your intent around it. And also, who's missing from the conversation, as Tia said, and how to engage further.
Yeah, just want to note, just for facilitation wise, for this section of the meeting tonight, we really want to allow Portland or PCCEP members to voice their questions and engage in the dialogue here. We do know that the public has questions here, and we ask that you place those questions into the chat. And also remember, we have open public comment coming up at the end of this meeting where you can also ask your questions there. So there will be time and space before we wrap the meeting, but unfortunately at this time, there's no open public questions at this point. Back to you, Conrad.
Thank you for saying that, Frida. I appreciate it. Again, in the interest of time, this next topic's big, so I want to make sure we get to it. Per the settlement agreement, it's time. It's that time of year. Meeting with the mayor. So, what we would like to go over is the ideas about how we approach it. I think in the document I shared with the committee from Jorge and myself, not that Jorge and I are right, but we wanted to lead with the couple of those key opportunities that I just wanted to reiterate really fast, that this is potential, right, for a new a new mayor to build that relationship, support, hear about his public safety and his vision of community engaged policing. I want to lead with that and open up to committee members to discuss what we would like to discuss with the mayor. Bueller? Oh, Carrie, floor is yours.
Hi, sorry for being off camera tonight. I have a bit of a cold, but I'm thinking our main goals should be reflected in what we want out of the mayor's meeting, obviously. There's also quite a few new things coming up. I think the mayor's interest in the changes in the policy with the National Guard would be an interesting topic relating to our PCCEP work. And yeah, I think I know our topics often change based on timely news topics and the affairs of Portland at the time. But codification, of course, is a key thing for us to push as well.
Awesome, Carrie. Thanks for kicking it off. Other committee members, things you want specifically to hear from the mayor, or begin the conversation with. Yep.
Yeah, Arthur, when is the meeting scheduled yet, or?
Oh, thank you. As of right now, looking over at Dory, it's not confirmed, but statistically, it's going to have to be in early December, not on a Wednesday. So it will be out of sync.
Okay.
Or outside the normal cadence.
Okay, and reason I ask is because I want to give it a little bit additional thought. But I think one of the things that we've talked about frequently as the new city council's been seated and feeling and getting their roots into how the new form of government is moving is how PCEP can be involved in, pardon me, reporting back to the city council and other committees that they have, and how we can engage and possibly have some allotted time on a regular basis, maybe quarterly or something, so that we can talk to both the mayor and city council and provide updates in the work that we're doing, as well as our individual relationships that we're trying to establish too. So I think that would be a big thing because primarily we've been reporting to the mayor, and the co-chairs speak with the mayor, and then we report to Judge Simon, and then we do the recommendations to PPB. It'd be nice to see a more cohesive approach to informing both legislative and executive folks. And it'd be interesting to see what his thoughts are on being able to facilitate that.
Absolutely, Kip. I think that's a good call out. And then just to realize and share the thought process, right? The reason why, even though the meeting, we were looking at it happening next month, it looks like with the mayor's calendars gets pushed to December. The reason why Jorge and I would recommend at least sending some questions earlier is to build up a professional rapport. And to be frank, if we expect some pretty detailed answers out of the mayor's office, naturally there'll be questions that come up in the moment, but it would be advisable to pre-send some questions that we want really more thoughtful, detailed, delineated answers. And I think that goes in that professional relationship setting. Of course, things will come up that we can ask in the moment, and we should do that, and we should do follow-up. But if we have more holistic or larger topics that we need to discuss or people feel very strongly about, that would be better served sending ahead of time. Thoughts from some of the other committee members?
I'm just thinking personally, I don't know if this is like a specific question. It's more like what I would want to know from him. And so there's maybe a way to articulate it that I haven't yet. I'd like to know if the way we currently operate and our focuses are in line with what he pictures the intent of this committee. That would be my curiosity.
Great call, Aviva. I think that can fall in line with not only, some of the key points and pillars of the mayor's office and their kind of public safety strategy policy, but, from that perspective, where does PCEP fit, and, not saying that we're going to agree to that, but at least we have an understanding of where we are in relation to the mayor and execution from the operations side. Really going to push. I don't want to make any committee members talk or be on camera if you don't want to, but if committee members also want to put something in the chat or I want to make sure we save space, to also follow up via email and share with each other that it would be, just to be very transparent with timeline, right? It would be advisable, to give, some questions. I'm going to say whenever we do settle on the date, right, 2 weeks out. I think I'm looking around at city staff, like 2 weeks, like that's a courteous amount of time to really get into some weeds. More is always better, but a fortnight, half a moon cycle to really get into the nitty gritty. And then obviously in the meeting, we can do more poignant follow-ups and specifics.
I think, I felt it at the beginning of the meeting. I knew this would be a sleepy night. I think it just is in the air today. But I think this is these are the planning stages. So PCEP members, you should be thinking, you have the mayor of the city of Portland in a meeting. What do you want to know about public safety and police? Like, how do you want to design this event? Are there other people you want there? Or thinking about starting to craft a conversation that, is going to be, it's a great opportunity, both for this committee, but also potentially the mayor and other guests and the audience. So, I think maybe thinking about the structure of the event, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to know? I mean, there's a lot on the table. So maybe we need more time or more of an internal meeting to start thinking through this, but yeah, definitely want to kind of generate some ideas. Carrie?
Thanks. I mean, our relationship with the mayor has changed since before the change in the settlement agreement or the PCEP plan that talked about the since the change in the government in the last election when the mayor was in charge of the PPP and stuff. So I'd be curious to hear I look forward to thinking about it further and submitting more thoughtful ideas in the near future. But I'm curious to know, with the new government structure, in what way would PCEP be most useful in working with the mayor's office? And how does that connect to PPP and the other emergency response organizations?
It's a great call, Carrie. I'll just go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. I think one of the fair questions professionally to ask. I'll leave it on a cliffhanger. Let's turn it over to Christopher.
I wasn't trying to interrupt you, Conrad. I want to just sort of throw an idea out there. I think the mayor is very interested in alternative responses that exist in the city, and I think there's some common ground with PCEP there. So just throwing that out there as something to potentially discuss with him. And Conrad, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, we appreciate having you. I wanted to make sure to give you space. I think it's a fair question to ask, is what would the mayor's office need to see in order to be supportive of codification of the committee? I don't think that's an unreasonable question. It gives, right, the mayor, Christopher, and the team time to, what are the steps? There's no guarantees to codification, but what would they like to see to be a sponsor of it when hopefully it goes in front of the city council? I think let's just ask the question.
Yeah, the mayor's office is happy to have that conversation. 100%.
Perfect. Kip?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be obviously it's been in chat. I think that's a main topic, and since our relationship with the mayor's office really or as far as the settlement agreement, hasn't really changed on how we address city council, even though the roles have changed a lot. That would be great to have that sponsorship. I think the other thing which I've brought up in other conversations, but I'll bring up here also, is our relationship to the entire changing vision for public safety for the city of Portland, and how PCCEP feeds into that in both the settlement agreement phase and hopefully a post-settlement agreement phase. So being able to have that conversation on the executive vision of public safety plus the city management, of course, we have Elizabeth and Dora and Liz here, and then the cross first responder area. So those are, again, it's hard to do it off the top of my head, but I definitely think that is something that's been really dear to me, that I got involved in PCCEP in the first place, is looking at what does a future of public safety look like in Portland that is comprehensive and cohesive. And I think that'd be a great conversation to also try to facilitate with the mayor.
Yep, I really like that idea, and I'm just gonna piggyback on that to say that, just sort of as a generative thing, when I say like we should be thinking about the event design, PCCEP should be thinking about it. You don't have to, there's nothing that stipulates like PCCEP has to call this event PCCEP meeting with the mayor. Like you could start thinking about like, what if PCCEP hosts a forum on transforming, whatever you said, or a forum on alternative response, right? And the mayor has to be a part of that conversation, but there might be other people who are also a part of it, right? And then it's less like, this transactional thing and more a productive discussion that, has some stakes, right?
I really like that idea. Thank you for being a generative input on that. So,
Carrie?
I'm just throwing it out there, but we've talked about a PCCEP 101 kind of exhibition, or like an introduction to PCCEP. And I'm thinking if we were to time that with a mayoral presence, then we'd get a lot more people.
That's a great call. Sorry, I'm writing down notes. I appreciate a couple private messages over to me. I think a couple of the good private messages call outs is ensuring that the committee is getting community input, and specifically looking at public safety and potentials of homelessness and addiction as factors of public safety within that conversation. And then also potentially looking at inviting our community and public safety counselors from the city councilors. And I think those are two really good call outs, right? It's a big tent. More people are invited. It should be bigger. And over to Leslie.
No, just a clarifying question, because I think Tia and I had the same realization, like right this moment. I thought we were identifying questions for the committee co-chairs to take to the mayor in their private quarterly meeting, not designing a event. So now I'm realizing that, and I just if anybody else had that misconception that Tia and I had, I just wanted to clarify that for folks, because could be I've been in meetings since 2 p.m. straight, so my brain is yeah.
Great call out. My bad. Public forum with the mayor. So how do we want it structured? The flow, who's invited, how do we get community input? Way better prompt, Leslie. Thank you. Yeah, in that vein. So Viva.
So can someone clarify the intent then, still not just kind of or is that what we're defining? Are we defining the intent, or is there any kind of develop yet.
My understanding, I'll defer to city staff to correct me, or more tenured committee members, is that in the terms of the settlement agreement, there is an annual meeting with the mayor, but it is not defined that it has to be private or just with the co-chairs. And this is a fantastic opportunity with a brand new mayor to have something a little bit more public, which is why the scheduling's taking a little bit more, and it's probably going to end up in early December based off of timing after the Thanksgiving break. But it is a really good opportunity, going back to community engagement, even though we don't have a subcommittee, to utilize our platform to bring more exposure to some of these topics around public safety in the community. Kip.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Viva first, then
Yeah,
Kip.
go for it.
Oh, okay. I agree with that. What I will also say too is I think that if so, you said that the requirement's an annual meeting, is that correct? Okay, so if this is our one meeting of the year with our new mayor, I would just hope that we could also think about, like, so I think it's kind of ironic that I'm like, I don't want to minimize the community engagement piece because I'm the champion of that all the time. And at the same time, if this is our one opportunity, as we are doing kind of a lot of like forming and you know, values discussions and mission discussion within our own section too, this is kind of like an opportunity to also get some of that input and perspective from him too. So maybe there's a way to merge the two, but I want to make sure that PCEP gets our needs met too, because I think we have to have a solid foundation before we can do a lot of that community work and involvement. And so I'm just thinking about some of the work that we've done in some of our private meetings, and just like how different our definitions are of all looking at the same mission of this group, and how we're defining it and our intent behind it. And so I would love to just know the mayor's perspective too. And I think that some kind of, you know, dialogue or in a community forum, whatever, but I want to make sure that we have like this really basic piece before we get too far, if this is kind of our starting point and opportunity for that for the year.
Absolutely. Kip.
Yeah, I was going to say, I learned about PCEP when Mayor Wheeler and then Commissioner, then Mayor Wheeler and then Commissioner Gonzalez had met to talk to PCEP and the public about Portland Street response and other public safety issues. So I do think we've been kind of lax on the open forum thing. So I think this is great that it's being championed to move forward. And Christopher, I'm wondering if there's opportunity to make it, you know, twice a year, to have him show up to take questions and meet with the public in this venue. I know he's not too busy or anything lately, but it might be a great way to bridge the executive to the public part. Like to Viva's point, we're really looking to expand community engagement and getting more people coming to these meetings so that we can get a broader set of opinions and conversations going. So hopefully that would be really fruitful for everybody.
Awesome. Leslie?
Yeah, so I again kind of trying to clear up the confusion for myself. So I know that like privately the mayor had agreed, the previous mayor, Mayor Wheeler, had agreed to quarterly meetings with the co-chairs. And I know that like this last year has been kind of weird. So will those potentially still be happening with this new mayor? I think that's also where some of my confusion was, because we haven't had any.
I
We
think
have.
Well,
We've had one, and
Yeah.
that's again kind of along the same lines. I would say that's partly largely on us with all of the transition, and yeah, but I'll let Christopher speak to the rest of that.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I was just gonna talk about that we did meet with the previous leadership, and it is on our radar to meet with Conrad and Jorge. was just waiting for kind of the dust to settle. And I think in an ideal world, we would be able to sit down with Conrad and Jorge and, you know, Dory and Liz or whoever from leadership with the mayor. We could sort of collectively plan, and you could what this, you know, what this town hall would look like that would include the mayor. But I don't know if that's going to work out. But I just wanted to sort of flag that it is on the radar to sit down with leadership, and we're not trying to walk away from that or shirk that by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and the reason that I raised that question is because I think, like, to Viva's point, if the assumption is that, like, this is potentially one of two times we can meet with the mayor, then this, like, public forum type meeting that we're planning, to Viva's point, is, like, more critical for PCEP to have specific questions. Not that it isn't always critical, but if we're meeting with the mayor outside of that and our co-chairs are meeting specifically on PCEP matters or things in more private setting, then that opens things up a little bit. I guess that's why I raised the question. So wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out there, I know I'm speaking out of turn. I'm happy to have private conversations or group conversations or public conversations to plan more for this event that's maybe going to happen in December if we don't accomplish everything today. So more than happy to make myself available.
Okay. Big shout out. Appreciate the private messages to myself. I have that in a shared doc that I share with Jorge and Dory for full transparency. So I've added all those private messages with different questions. I think the inclination is that we have something that is a little bit more open. Sounds like maybe the timing won't be full public forum, which would also not be advisable. We want to try to filter questions so we can combine them and pull out common themes and really hit things that are asked multiple times in different ways. But I think now would be a good time to bring up that like next slide as we're talking about it. Liz, if you would be ever so kind. On the
Just wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to maybe get some ideas from the public as well. As y'all add to y'all list of further conversations about the conversation with the mayor, just to make sure that that perspective is present.
Great call out. If I can just run through the logistics really fast, and then absolutely let's do that. Let's get some public questions and ideas right now. It sounds like as of this morning, these are the dates that are in consideration to meet with the mayor early December. We need to make a decision on virtual or hybrid. I'll use the bully pulpit to really try to encourage a hybrid approach. I think things mean a little bit more in person when it's the head of our city taking the time to meet. And I think it's just respectful for everyone who can. Those who can't, we absolutely should have a virtual option to make it accessible. Finalizing location and then determining who should be there. So committee members can noodle on that, and I'll turn it over to you, Frida.
Yeah, so at this time, we'll go ahead and open the floor for a few minutes to hear from the public and get some ideas from you all on what you feel like the chairs would want to bring to this meeting with the mayor. Go ahead, Barb.
So, hey, y'all. So I think given some of the confusion that's going on right now about whether it's PCEP meeting with the mayor or a subset of PCEP meeting with the mayor or a public event meeting with the mayor, that one of the topics would be to talk to the mayor about his interest in how often to meet with PCEP or PCEP members privately versus being part of public PCEP events that PCEP could count on having him around. Just trying to kick it off since nobody else was talking.
Yeah, right on, Barb. Barb, can I ask you a follow-up to that?
You can always ask, Afrida.
Do you have any, from your perspective, do you have a preference of what you would like to see as far as the mayor's presence? Or
I think it would be lovely if you guys could get the mayor to commit not only to meeting with you guys internally with you guys between 2 and 4 times a year, because 2 just doesn't seem like enough. But if he was interested in meeting with the public through PCEP twice a year, that would be really cool. I mean, obviously it wouldn't have to be a big, long 2-hour whatever. But I think that that is something that is really missing from how things, used to be and were set up in terms of being able to network and, what have you. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate your perspective. Go ahead, Dory.
I'm just gonna keep saying, I think there's just something in the air tonight. But I just want to take a second to clear up the confusion once and for all. So, under the PCEP plan, the mayor is required to attend 2 public events per year. And that is what we are discussing. So it's not even, I hope that he's interested, but he does have to come. And yeah, we want to plan a great event for him and for everybody. But that is what we're discussing.
Well, so Dory, then December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
Yes.
Those dates were for internal
those
or
are
public?
We're not discussing internal at all. So this discussion is meant to be generative about, what should this group plan as far as that public forum with the mayor goes. We're not talking about any internal meetings in this conversation.
Okay, thank you. I really hope I'm not the only one that was confused.
I don't think you are, which is why I piped up. So yeah, I think it's totally fine if we need more space to kind of discuss, but hopefully there's some good things that have come up tonight. So with that context, does anyone have ideas they want to share as far as what kind of topics or things that like you would want to know from your leadership in the city of Portland?
Okay. Feels like folks are still ruminating on potential ideas. And so we'll honor that. Remember that there's always open public comment at the end of this meeting in case anything comes up that you remember, oh, I want to add that to as a suggestion to the agenda. In addition to that, you can always email PCEP or also contact PCEP via their Instagram or other social media handles in order to add your input on suggestions there as well. I go back to you, Conrad.
Excellent. Great note, Viva. Added that to the list as well. I want to apologize for my setting the confusion there. I'm learning very quickly when you're part of a lot of conversations, you make a lot of assumptions and you have to really be specific, and that's on me. So I do apologize. to everybody for that. Really excited about the opportunity. I will press upon folks that are here and the body that we should just make a list, just brainstorm a list of questions. So we can isolate a couple key things that'll kind of set the tone theme of how the rest of the questions are going to go. I got that shared doc. I can, again, with Jorge and Dory, and then we can share with the group and have it be all input, and then also take public feedback from the email or DMs and add that to the list as well, right? Okay. Moving on, I think the next slide, we arrived a little early, which is even better, for more open public comments. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Frida. Oh, if there were no other comments, sorry. There are no other comments from the committee. Seeing none, over to Frida.
Right. At this time, we are at open public comment. This is an opportunity for you to ask any questions to any material that was discussed today or any other of PCCEP's business that they are moving through. I'll go ahead and select your hand, but please don't hesitate to raise your hand to insert your voice into the space. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the earlier conversation about the recommendation on exculpatory evidence. I would like to hear some discussion of the process of recommendations. You've come at making recommendations in a variety of different ways, but in this case, you looked at a directive, and usually what you do when you look at a directive, you say, oh, I like it fine, I don't like it, make this change or that change. But in this case, you felt much more strongly. You had a couple of meetings about it. You made a recommendation. And then you get a response from the chief, and the chief says, thank you for your recommendation. And we got a lot of input on this one. And thank you very much, but no thank you. And in between the thank you and the no thank you, there was some legalese. So what do you do with that? Do you roll over and say, okay, the police looked at our stuff, didn't like it, that's it? Or do you fight back directly? Or is there another procedure? The police are employees of the city. Who monitors who gets to say this is the ultimate answer to any specific directive? There is a police commissioner, it's the mayor, and perhaps you want to talk to him at your open public forum about this. But separate from the open public forum, perhaps the PCCEP committee needs to talk a little bit about their process regarding recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rochelle. Go ahead, Kip.
Yeah, I was gonna try to answer some of that. And yeah, thanks for that question. I know it was I think it was you also brought that up in the subcommittee meeting. It really is up to you guys in the public as to what we should pursue. So many of the recommendations, and Dory and Liz, you can correct me on the history before I was part of PCCEP. Many of the recommendations have been accepted, some have been partially accepted, some have been outright rejected. So if the public and the input we're getting is really strongly intended that we should keep pursuing it, then we will figure out ways to try to facilitate additional conversation and bring it back around. One thing that we are able to do as a committee is that while universal reviews come up approximately every 2 years for all the directives, PCEP can bring up any directive at any time for discussion based on, again, impetus from the public and assessing the needs to do so. So those are some of the avenues that we have. I think there's a whole new uh, set of approaches that can happen because of the new city council and their legislative oversight. So I don't know that we've explored all the opportunities to facilitate the conversations yet.
Right, thank you, Kip. Debbie?
Hi, I'm Debbie Ione. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Portland and also was a member of the Police Accountability Commission. We have quite an interest in how things are going with implementing the new oversight system. And so like to start with a question. Curious if we can find out the name of the person who is leading the implementation and, getting everybody, the CVPA members all trained and onboarded, and so like to know that. And then second question is, it's a comment, suggestion is, it'd be really great if you guys could invite that person to a future PCCEP meeting so they can kind of give us like a 10-minute update on where things are and what we can expect in the future and when we think the new board will meet and maybe the agencies start taking complaints. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Is anyone still on who has the answer to Debbie's question about the CBPA and who is administratively managing that at the moment? Perhaps not. All right.
Go ahead, Barb.
Hi. I just mostly want to, and no, I don't know the answer to that, Dory. I just wanted to thank everyone. I thought this was really interesting and kind of different than a lot of the other PCEP meetings. And I wanted to thank everybody, but I also do want to remind PCEP meeting members that there is a lot of institutional knowledge in the room with people that have been following this for a long time. And sometimes it is very disappointing when those people might have expertise and questions that you guys don't get to ask because of time limits that you guys have decided you have in place as we're ending this meeting most likely early. And I know it's hard to predict those things, but PCEP members, I just want to remind you guys that there's a lot of institutional knowledge that shows up to your meetings.
That's a great call out, Barb, and I really appreciate you saying that. To be completely frank and transparent, I made a call. I made a call because it seemed like there was a precipitous moment where the meeting could have gone awry because we had speakers engaging with each other, and they were doing so very professionally. But I thought it was in the best interest of the body to filter public comment through chat first, just so we could make sure we were staying on topic. I am new to this. I am not perfect at this. I'm not even close to good. So that was a call I made, and I'm learning, and I appreciate the feedback and the opportunity to grow. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Conrad. I know you're doing, you're making the call that you see best also. And, an hour ago, things looked different than they do now. But I also end up advocating for advocates. So that's how I end up in this position a lot. Thank you guys a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for transparency, that is an ongoing conversation, is how do we facilitate more public comment in the moment while also staying on topic. And so we are trying to have those conversations about what the best approach and balance is. So any ideas would really be appreciated about how we ensure we're keeping on topic, to be respectful of everyone's time and all the professionals in the room and all the community members in the room. And then really quickly, the other point I really wanted to acknowledge from Dr. Silver that I really appreciated is the call out about how do we flow and follow up. And I hope, Dr. Silver, that, you know, Jorge and I and the rest of the committee's work on kind of grounding the agenda to make sure that we as a body are obligated to follow up. And that's something that happens every time after updates in a full committee public setting, that, you know, if we are missing something, you know, we can be called out, or if we haven't addressed something fully. And I really appreciate, and I want to call it out in these last couple meetings when we've had a lot of changes and shifts in either leadership or committee members, that there was public advocacy that we need to go over this directive. We need to go over the directive. We need to go over the chief's response. And I appreciate that we took the time. We have representatives from the Bureau. We have representatives from MPD to speak on it, and that the public commentary around it helped the committee drive those decisions. So yes, great question, Dr. Silver. I didn't provide an answer, but I just wanted to assure you we're taking it wholeheartedly into consideration about the best process to make sure we're not just doing it right now, but that we're setting up the committee for the next several cycles and turnovers to keep doing it. Okay, I talked too much.
I just want to note that there is an answer to Debbie's question from earlier in the chat. Philip C., do you mind coming off mute and also putting what you wrote in the chat into the space vocally?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just saying that Kristen Thorpe is currently organizing the CBPA and trying to get people trained and onboarded for that. Once the CBPA is actually officially formed, they'll have to hire a director pretty quickly so that they can hire staff and get all their investigators and all their systems set up. So it'll probably take at least 6 months to a year before they're actually starting, in my opinion.
Thank you, Philip. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I mean, I'm familiar with Kristen Thorpe, but I'm wondering, does Kristen have a supervisor? Is there somebody from the more upper levels in the city kind of managing all of this? So that's my follow-up. Thanks.
Yeah, Philip, do you have any ideas on that?
I think it's the city manager, but I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
Sarah would probably know.
Sarah. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, I'm sorry. I heard there were problems with my audio, so I switched to my phone on that. The Community Board for Police Accountability, no. Anyway, I'm sorry. The Office of the OCPA and the CBPA report are part of the city operations public service area, service area. And so they are not by design part of the public safety service area, and they report to the deputy city attorney over that service area, who now is acting, and it is Tracy Warren. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. I was like, Tracy Warren is the acting deputy city attorney. Good grief, Ames, city administrator for that area. So that's who's in charge.
Thank you, Sarah. Leslie.
So I just, as I've been kind of thinking about like the earlier conversation, kind of where we wrapped and stuff like that, I think the reason that Conrad made the call that he made, not to put words in your mouth, is because there seemed to be like no real path forward when there were like these two levels of like diverging opinions, I guess, or something like that. Like, I think from what I heard from Captain Lindsay is that from his experience and what he like is in charge of and everything, they are fulfilling the rule, and that's why or the policy, and that's why we're moving forward. What I hear from MPD is that they feel like it's not. So there seems to be like some like disagreement there. I guess one of the things that I would like, and not to, we don't know what we don't know, right? I guess one of the things that I want to like put out there is I think we also need to do some more research as to where this like is like maybe it's not our place as PCEP, but like there seems to be like a divergence there. And I guess I would like to, I don't know if this is a PCEP task, but like do some more research on like how many times, like for example, has it been found that it hasn't been followed? Is this like a problem type of thing? Or, I think that there was like a comment that as a city recently paid out a settlement due to some oversight or something like that. Is that a pattern? Is that a one-off? I think that there's like more research we can do, and I don't know who has those answers, but I think that would be almost also as part of like thank you, Kip, 300K today. So I think that also like allows us to kind of have more information, one, but then it also gives us an opportunity to like figure out if this is a recommendation that like we need to recommend. Maybe it's not redoing this recommendation, maybe it's a different recommendation as well. But I think that's what I heard, and wanted to make sure to voice before I forgot.
Yeah, go ahead, Kip.
Yeah, briefly to just add on to that, we have discussed previously, and I think it'd be something good to put into practice, going back and looking at previous recommendations and if we're actually seeing the movement forward that we had expected, or things that we need to revisit because things have not been changing. So taking stock of past committee work as a regular part of our cadence makes good sense to me. And maybe we can facilitate that through a quarterly review or something. But it would be great, again, to be able to put things out there, our assessments, and then get public input on it. So if we do need to revisit something, we have momentum on it.
If I could just chime in real quick, goodness, right, of course, as I'm coughing. I want to apologize if it appeared that I don't want to say getting into it with MPD, but in my responses, I just felt like there were comments and questions and concerns being addressed that I felt like I could address. And I wanted to make sure that I'm conveying, my role for PCEP is to convey my experiences, to convey my knowledge and what I know and what is being told to me. And that's all I was trying to convey. I felt like if it appeared that I was dominating the conversation, I apologize. I just wanted it to be clear that like I can answer these to the best of my knowledge. If I feel like if I'm silent, then PB we are complicit, and then we don't know what we're doing, or we don't have an answer. And I guess that's what I was trying to convey in the conversation earlier. So going forward, I can shut my mouth, and I can go into the chat or something like that, if that's easier. I apologize if it came across that way is all.
No, I don't think so. I think Viva put it perfectly in the chat. Like the conversation was appropriate, like everything was fine. It wasn't something that we don't have enough information to resolve the differences of of what of the perspective. And so like that, it was nothing like that. It was just like we don't have enough information, and we weren't gonna get anywhere. So that yeah, I think that all that really reveals to us is like we need more information, and that will help us make our recommendation better, and figure out how we want to move forward.
And just to, again, I'll piggyback onto Leslie again, just as part of that, no, we appreciate your input, and that's why I did try to bring up that there's definitely a disconnect in understanding from the different parties, and why I think it does make sense to continue the conversation going forward, once we find a path forward for it. So, but no, please do speak out. That's why you're here, and we need everybody's expertise and understandings of things so that we can move things along.
It was it was actually a privilege to be able to see both of two different groups that work in the same field actually communicate with each other, right? And so I want to call out that's a good thing. Viva put it perfectly. Sometimes you hit a point of no resolution. I think the mathematical term would be indeterminate. We reached an indeterminate point, and I was reluctant to add anything to the conversation when it seemed like we were at an impasse. And that's not a bad thing, right? Being comfortable with being uncomfortable is awesome to have. And these are the kind of conversations we want in this group. I guess I shouldn't speak for the group, but it seems like the overwhelming feeling is like, this is exactly what we should be having. But it also means sometimes you have to make a tough call about when to call it. So I want to call it out. It's like, that's actually what we want. We want more of it. And myself and I'll work with Jorge on, when to better transition and when to open up better for public comment and input into those moments.
And thank you, Elizabeth, for bringing the agreements back into the space. And part of our agreements are being okay with ambiguity and speaking your own truth. So any other questions or comments during this open public comment?
I guess I will just say, I will be in touch with members to work on a planning meeting, and we can get the ball rolling on that sooner rather than later. For the meeting with the mayor, the public meeting.
Did you see my note, Dory? I don't know when they know whether city council is going to be at night anymore, but
We are actually considering non-Wednesdays anyway, so yes, that is on our radar. Thank you, Barb. And let's pass it back to Conrad to close us out, seeing no more comments.
All right. What's next? I'm so glad you asked. You would be delighted to join our subcommittee co-chairs Kip and Tia. We're fantastic, awesome. If you don't know already, you will, because you will be at their subcommittee meeting Wednesday, November 5th. Tell your friends, tell your other community members. There's no better time to be involved than right now. I know I sound funny, but it actually is a call to action. I'm just trying to do it in light and the darkness. So be there. It's going to be great.
Bring your friends.
All right. And with that, thank you everyone. And thank you to Conrad and Jorge for stepping up in this interim period. And I'm looking forward to what's coming up. And I'm just reading the chat. Sorry. Yes. And so it's 8:17 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.